TerralStar.com. Today is May 26, 2016. This is the Black Star Update Report connected to Volume 21 of Terral's 2016 newsletter. And lots of information here on what's going on seismically and the fact that the binary star repulsion model is broken or requires modification, because what was predicted, what was expected, has not happened for 2016. I'll just begin by reading. Seismic and volcanic indicators all say Earth is moving through the first Earth change lull period for the 2016 orbit cycle relative to the Black Star, moving very slowly left in the orbit diagram at the feet of the Virgo constellation towards Libra, just below the ecliptic plane. So looking at these values for, this is week 15 for the last 2 years, you can see lots of big numbers up here. And when you look at this year's, 2 of these values, the 7s, this is the week that we have 7 magnitude earthquakes. And this is where we had 0. This is where we've seen more, with the exception of last year, we had 5 6 magnitude earthquakes. This year just 2. That still doesn't earn a red value. But here we've been averaging just over 50 of the 5 magnitude earthquakes, 18 definite red value in the chart right here. And the 2.5 to 4 magnitude earthquakes, they are way below where they usually are. Didn't quite earn a red value there. And when we come down and look at the chart, you can see more and more red is filling the board here, the seismic chart, and couldn't really give this a red value, just decreased by 1. It's the indicator quakes are saying that things are just about the same. Remember, the 2.5 to 4 magnitude earthquakes, extremely important. We watch these fluctuate up and down because as the Earth core is receiving added doses of electromagnetism, then the areas around the global calderas, the magma chambers, they tend to have more of these smaller magnitude earthquakes, and so that's remained stable for this week. Looking at this chart, this is what kind of struck me with the 5 magnitude earthquakes since week 10. Note the steady decline that we're seeing here. And when you go back and look historically, this just does not happen. Usually we have a high number and then we will dive down and get a low number and then a bounce. There are no bounces here. This is just a gradual decrease all the way back from week 10, from 47. That's closer to where we should be seeing, but for week 15. The biggest value should be right here. That's what we've seen historically. So I may seem that this is a new addition. This is something to try to illustrate more. This is what was going on for week 13, 14, and 15 for 2014. And you can see all the big numbers here. 17 6 magnitude earthquakes, and that was just a 19-day period here. 13, 14, and 15. The indicator quakes for the 3-week period was almost 1,000. The 5 magnitude earthquakes, look at the big numbers for 2014. Then last year, I mean, we're still over 100 for these, for the 5 magnitude earthquakes. We were almost to 60 for 1 week back here in week 13, back up to 56 the next week. So you're almost at 60 there. The 3-week total is only 63 for these 3 big weeks that we're supposed to have here. It's just not happening that way. We had from 6 magnitude and higher, we've only had those 2 Mexican quakes. That's it. Without them, these are all zeros across here. Well pronounced lull when we're supposed to be at our peak. That's what's going on here. So the Earth change lull period, I mean, how many times you guys heard me say that the Martian dust storms that were predicted, we predicted them way back, but they came too early. Then the magnetopause reversal that we expected, it happened. It was characterized as a collapse, magnetopause collapse, but we had the subatomic particle flows coming from beyond Earth towards the sun. That's what caused the Martian dust storms. That happens from magnetic portal connection convergence. So let's look at where we are in the solar system right now. Let's get this on the actual time right now. And what happens is, I previously thought that the Black Star was already in Libra. Now it appears that it's still at the feet of Virgo. So we are beyond that point. This is why we had all of this activity when Earth was passing between the Sun and Virgo in the month of April. Now the Earth is beyond that, and Earth is moving towards this 90-degree angle position. So Earth, and now that Black Star orbital, the inbound orbital velocity has slowed even more, only 3 degrees left in the orbit diagram in an entire year, Earth in its 66,000 miles per hour is outpacing the Black Star even more dramatically on this cycle than on previous cycles. The lengthening of that magnetic portal connection as Earth is moving away from the Black Star is causing this magnetic portal connection to lengthen even more rapidly than on previous orbit cycles, and that's causing this well-pronounced lull right whenever we're supposed to have, when we're passing through Libra. This is when I thought we were, because the black star's in Libra, this is when we should have the high activity, and we have a dip in the chart that is more dramatic than we've seen in any year that I've been running this investigation since January of 2011. That's what's going on here. The Earth is in a well-defined Earth change low period, and that's going to continue until we reach the outside orbit position relative to the black star. I mean, we should assume it's going to move a little further left. So whenever this 90-degree angle, we're going to reach in just about the same time we did last year, about in this position right here, August 19th. If we move 3 days later for the near side alignment event, then this is likely going to be 3 or 4 or 5 days later. And last year we reached outside orbit position on August the 15th. So it's going to be in about this position rather than coming on around as the previous modeling has suggested. So that's the prediction for now. Earth change lull all the way around through. That doesn't mean we're going to have no 6 magnitude earthquakes. If you look at the chart for previous years, then if you just look at the 6 magnitude earthquakes, this is just for 2015, you see it's hard to find a week we have no 6 magnitude earthquakes. And it usually doesn't happen. You don't see 2 zeros even in a row. Here, you see one instance right here, and that lull led up to having 12 in a single week, but this is on the back side. We're on the back side of the sun. So you see the 6s? It's not, we should have 1, 2, or 3, or 4 just normally. So it's not that we're going to have, I'm not predicting we're going to have no 6 magnitude earthquakes, but the fact that we have so many red letters, and I'm expecting a lull, but how much of a lull it's going to be, I'm not quite sure. What I am looking at whenever I'm looking at the seismic data for the last week is something I haven't noticed on previous orbit cycles, is these 2 lines running horizontal, running down. This is the origins. This is where everything begins. With each Earth orbit cycle, it kicks off over here first, and then those pressures shift over in our direction over here in the Americas. So just like in a low period, we're seeing dead areas that are forming. Just recently, we had solid concentric rings from South America all the way around the Pacific Ocean, all the way around, going through the Earth change uptick period. So this is a retreat of the swarm areas. They're getting smaller, which that's typically what we see going through the Earth change low period. This is more evidence. The pattern is saying that we are going through an Earth change low period. However, at the same time, proliferation of what was the Baja California quake swarm area, this new line of activity from Texas running up through Seattle pointing at Cascadia, this line, the separation of the plates right here, this appears to be volcanic and seismic. Remember that the tectonic cascade away from the North American craton, these plates are wanting to move towards Solomon Islands since February 6th event over in this area. Crack the tectonic plate in 2, cascade began this way. During the uptick periods, this gains momentum. And my view is opportunity for slippage is happening in here because of the separation of the plates. It doesn't take much separation when you have these plates that are not moving because they're pressed together so tightly. There's so much friction. But whenever that relaxing is taking place, it creates opportunity, and that's precisely what we're seeing right here. But still, I'm not saying that the big one is going to come this week or something like that. Remember that we're in the lull period. And whenever this linchpin event does happen up here in Cascadia, I'm expecting it to be near the end of an Earth change uptick period. Like the period that we just went through, all that big activity we had in April, it's at the end of that, as the pressures are at their peak, the volcanism pressures at their peak. Remember, going through April, we had 7, 8, and 9 new volcanic eruption events every single week. It's during that type of activity and with the high seismicity, like we saw in April, that the very end, so what was it, the 7.0 that we had, that was on April the 28th, Vanuatu, is that how you say it? Then that ended the uptick period. It would be, this linchpin event would happen, it would coincide with the end of the uptick period, just like Vanuatu did. So I am not really expecting this linchpin event can even happen until we begin to pass behind the sun relative to the black star. And if you put the black star there, that's when the Earth comes on around like this. And for some darn reason, these events keep happening late on the back side. So solar flares on the back side, the large activity. If you look back at the seismic chart, for what happened on the last cycle. You see the backside alignment event right here at the end of November and all these 7s. It would be whenever this chart fills out and we get to the outside orbit position and then we get to the backside, that's when we have the opportunity for one of these big quakes at the backside alignment to be our linchpin quake event. So whenever that happens, not down in South America like it did with the 2 Peruvian quakes, that's the 2 Peruvian quakes right there. Whenever that activity we've seen now, these 2 big Mexican quakes, if you want to call them big, you know, they were like 6.9, that seems to indicate that the pressure is moving south from South America. It's moving north from South America through Central America, down Mexico. I've been saying Mexico is where the pressure must go next because it's already come through South America with the 8.3 Chile quake. That changed. That was a reset, the 8.3 that came through. And that's going to be this quake event right here. That changed things. That's why we had no 6 magnitude earthquakes for a 5-week period. That's a bunch of 6s all together and then nothing. That is an indicator of a reset globally that took place. Then shortly after that, we see the build-up, ramp up of pressure again, and then 5 7 magnitude earthquakes in a 4-week period near the backside alignment. So it's going to be near the backside alignment coming down in this chart, and that's going to happen right around December the 1st, something like that. So we've got a lengthy earth change low period coming to the mid to late August. If the black star is continuing to move left in the orbit diagram slowly, there is the outside chance that this thing is let me look at the solar system. This isn't just an outside chance. But with this thing moving only 3 degrees left in the orbit diagram in this area, it's possible that the black star coming in on what appeared to be elliptical orbit is actually going to go around a 3rd point in space, giving us an event that happens over here in the winter orbit side, maybe February. It's possible, that's less than 10% chance of something like that. In other words, it's making a loop, so it actually went further into Virgo than I thought, and now it's looping backwards. It's coming back on itself, and it's not actually going to come around the sun. My scriptural experience looking at the fact that this thing destruction is coming suddenly, like the birth pangs upon a woman with child, makes me believe that this thing does cross Earth orbit path, but it's a springtime event before it reaches perihelion behind the sun relative to its aphelion position, which is out in this direction. So I'm really thinking that it's going left in the orbit diagram. It's going to continue going left in the orbit diagram. And getting a little screwed up because I'm not looking at the actual where we are right now. I've got it on back orbit. The black star being here, we're going to outside orbit position, lull period all the way through. When we come around this way, the black star is going to be coming towards us. But remember again, it's been moving 12 degrees left in the orbit diagram. That means it's moving rather quickly towards where Earth is at this position. Only 3 degrees for an entire year means that this could be a pronounced lull that that lasts longer than I even think. Because as Earth is coming around behind the sun, this thing is not coming in that quickly. That means the magnetic portal connection is going to shorten, but it's going to be shortening relatively slow. And Earth has the ability to maintain equilibrium even easier each time it expands and contracts. Expands and contracts. We just went through the expansion period. Now we're going to go through we just went through the uptick period, which is the expansion period. Now we're going through a contraction period right here. But with cycles for the last 5 years, that expansion and contraction is making Earth able to maintain equilibrium even easier. So this uptick period coming up to the backside alignment might not be as well defined as it has been previously either. So there's a lot of things that I'm watching. The Earth is testifying. It's the primary witness in this case. And I just have to listen to what the Earth is telling me. That's what's running the investigation. That's why there's so much focus on the seismic chart. That's why there's so much importance on the number of new volcanic eruption events, the Earth relieving the pressure. Pressure builds up, it's got to go somewhere, new volcanic eruptions. The number of them each week, it's on a scale of 1 to 10. We've been in the 9s in April, now we're down into, well, I'll show you what we had for this week. Get on down here. Past the seismic stuff, only 3. We only had 2 last week. Went back to 2014, for week 15, we had 9, just like we just went through April. We had 9 new volcanic eruptions. That's what we get whenever the N, you see the N in my charts? When I get near that near side alignment event, we are at the closest point to the black star. The magnetic portal connection between the black star and the Earth is shorter when we're on this side of the solar system. That's why we're having the big volcanism that's going on through here. That is expected to decrease also. But then again, there is something changing globally. This seismic volcanic dynamic shift is taking place in 2016. Definitely, it's taking place. That's why we're seeing the number of 5 magnitude earthquakes replacing the higher magnitude earthquakes. The pressures just can't build up. When the earth core gets really, really hot, we go through the expansion that separates the tectonic plates. The magma is trying to push up in between. And we can't get the big pressure buildup that is released with the seismic events. So to me, globally, the pattern that I'm seeing here and the magnitudes that I'm seeing here, see how they're all relatively small? That is the explanation. That's what makes sense to me right now. And this is going to gradually cool as we move towards outside orbit position. At some point, then Earth cools enough so these plates come back together, and then we can build up the pressure again. That's when I'm looking for the big seismic events, when all this pressure is finally released, when we pass behind the sun relative to the black star later in the timeline. So that's the way that things look right now at this moment as far as the seismicity and the volcanism. Then the Earth, let me use this chart down here. I know this thing's getting kind of funky up here. I'm going to have to do something. I'm really, really far off the chart. But I can tell looking already, we reached the bottom of the chart here in May of the last cycle. If this is May the 24th, we're looking at, let's see, May the 20th. Oh, this is June. This is June the 25th right here. May the 24th of last year, we were here. May the 26th, look how far we're ahead. The predictive modeling said that we would be back here in May. Lagging this by 12 days? No, way ahead. So we're going to reach the bottom of the chart here in a week or two, but that's going to be almost a month later than we did last year. So looking at this chart, it's easier to see here that how far we've been moving. Look at the distance between these green dots. And look how this particular week we had an acceleration for the last week. This is bigger section through here, matching this section up through here where rapid movement, but now the magnetic North Pole appears to be slowing down its velocity in making this turn, making this circle right here, which is the Chandler wobble. That is supposed to be 435 days to go around, but that hasn't been the case for the last 2 years. It's been under 400 days and very predictable. It seemed to be controlled by the black star because the same 12-day delay appeared from year over year for the last 2 years. We go from this year to this year, this year to this year. We had a delay where the migrating magnetic North Pole actually trailed last year's value, the previous year's value. Definitely different now. This thing is racing farther ahead. But if you look at the pattern, this is a very similar pattern. You see how it opens up out here right between January 26th and February 2nd. You're seeing the same kind of separation here historically back in 2013 to 2014 where it made this wide track and came around. So it is similar, but it's on a much larger scale. See, the migrating magnetic North Pole, although it's circling itself, it's making a much wider circle, and it is moving much more rapidly as it's going around. So we'll see if we have previous patterns on the backside as we do on this near side over here. But I really can't tell you what's going to happen. I'm at a point in the investigation where I'm having to reformulate the hypotheses based upon the tweaks to the binary star magnetic repulsion model. I believe the model is accurate, it's good, but it's got to be tweaked. And there's not mentioned in this report something that Frank Hagerbeets has been sharing with me about the harmonics, about the planetary alignments. There's something that's going on here as the black star comes around. Rather than at the direct alignment, I don't think we've been looking at the direct alignment event with Fukushima and Guerrero. I think that the solar system harmonics made it so that when the black star came around, that it triggered our event. When that harmonic, those frequencies with the alignments of the planets is different, then the black star has to go further or not as far. There's also another possibility is that this thing has orbitals. So if all the orbitals are on one side, some people say there's 7 of them or something. I don't know if there's any orbitals, but I do know that there are fluctuations in this seismic chart that I can't account for. There are variables that I can't see. There's something else that's working here that I have yet to wrap my head around. So it says, the data says that the black star moved left in the orbit diagram only 3 degrees, but if the harmonics say that the event happens early on this cycle, then that would explain everything. So everything did not happen a week early, as expected. I mean, a week earlier than I thought. Or on April the 25th of last year, that event happened later than expected because of the dynamic taking place between the magnetism of all the planets, the source of that harmonic, the harmonics that Frank is talking about. So that's working in the back of my mind, doing my best to try to look at the input data and to construct a predictive model that says what's going to happen. But right now, it appears that the black star is taking a different course than an elliptical orbit. This thing does not have a circular orbit, and it doesn't have an elliptical orbit. At a distance, it follows the elliptical line, but then when it gets close in, remember that the source of the black star electromagnetism is the sun itself. So as it's getting closer to the sun, it comes in and then is being pushed. Then it's trying to fall into the well, but then the magnetism between the two stars, the repulsion, is pushing it away. So it appears that we're transitioning. 2016 is going to, I think, looking back, be a transition period for the black star, transitioning from this elliptical orbit to a circular orbit. So that as it came in, repelled back, it's actually beginning this circular part. Don't know, can't draw definitive conclusions today, but that's where I'm leaning, in that direction. So I got into a little bit of trouble. I'm going to this week, but this is an interesting video sent in, and I'll give my commentary here. That made this the featured article for this week. There's somebody else out there that is saying that the black star is between Jupiter and Mars. That's where I think that's where it says that it is. But this is I maybe should have pushed this up and made it the feature article. But this Ronald Shimshuk, is that his name? This supposedly an astrophysicist, supposedly a NASA astrophysicist. I didn't have a lot of time, came in kind of late in the week, but I know that from what I can tell from my research, he disappeared for 7 years over into Sweden. That might explain why some people are saying that the fellow doesn't even exist. But there's I put this information down here, and someone's Bones interviewed this guy, and some of the information in there I found to be disinformation, like it's being covered up by the chemtrailing and things like that. And from my own research, I know what I've made the connection. What the chemtrailing is about is introducing nanomaterials into us so that we can be managed and controlled. That's really what it's about. And then there's a real-world simulation going on. Artificial intelligence is in charge, and they are trying to get your stimulus, your input data for their human hosts. They are piping that straight from you to them, from heart rate to respiration to the way you react to things, so that eventually they can reverse that flow and give you stimulus from the real world host. Ooh, pardon me. Explosive sneeze there. So I read the information and offered this reply. I went to Stephen Olson's site and said right off, I would love to support the Steve Olson in the YouTube channel, and I actually subscribed to his channel earlier, and then got some flack from some of my subs that were saying, hey, look at this video, look at this video, look at this video, lens flares, sundogs, all kinds of stuff being represented as Nibiru, which is typical for a disinformation operation, a desensitizing operation. Typical. That's the kind of stuff that you see. Well, I don't need to make comparisons here, but then there's links to free newsletters. I'm trying to get people looking in the right direction, see that there is a seismic pattern, and I make a few comments about the nano components and things like that. Offer them the decoder report from the Dropbox folder, and then Steve Olson. Lots of people misspell my name. T-E-R-A-L seems simple to me, but it's a pattern that goes back from all the way back to my Bible research and through the 9/11 research and things. And I don't know, it's just a pattern there. But he was offended because maybe I could have structured my statements a little bit better. I have this feeling of alone of running this research project, exactly like my scriptural project, and fighting against the denominationalism, just attacked constantly. And then the 9/11 investigation, lettered agency operatives, digging rabbit holes everywhere, trying to confuse. And you got your top drawer operatives. And so I'm speaking from experience here, and when I see so much disinformation in one place, then I actually get a little bit angry about it, as if people are deliberately misleading. But remember, there are people in the command position. That includes artificial intelligence now. There are their handlers, there are their operatives, their assets, and then a string of dupes that really, they're just being manipulated. They're being brought along by the lettered agencies. That's part of their op, is to bring on as many people from our environment to participate Why pay operatives and assets when dupes will do your work for free? These operatives can be reassigned, redeployed, they can do other things. When I saw gigantic redeployment from the 9/11 investigation somewhere, did not realize for a couple of years that it was into Project Black Star. That's where they are. So I'm seeing the same patterns here, and perhaps I was, and then in my own investigation, I was having difficulty getting enough information on this fella to even substantiate he was a NASA anything. So this is his reply that came this morning. This is my reply that I sent also this morning. And you guys can make up your own minds. Maybe I did apologize to Steve. Maybe I owe him more of an apology. I don't know if he is a dupe. You know, if you're an operative or a dupe, which is more dangerous? This stuff is very, very serious. This is not play here. This is my investigation is in the 6th year, and when I see patterns, when I hear footsteps that appear like lettered agency, like I see with the CERN disinformation coming from BP Earthwatch, the fracking stuff that I see coming from Dutch Sense, and suspicious observers, the sleeping sun. Oh, the sun's making all these earthquakes. Oh, the sun's going to sleep. And he's trying to have it both ways. And I see large support, lots of money being funneled in, and massive operations is what they turn out to be. And I'm just a little peewee, you know, compared to any of these guys. So maybe, you know, I was jumped overboard a little bit. And if so, I apologize again. I'm going to look more into this subject right here with this Dr. Ronald guy, to see what he's really saying. I saw already that he is familiar with Judy Wood, and I know she's part of a disinformation program, digging rabbit holes in the World Trade Center theater, unwilling to even discuss the Pentagon, what happened to the Pentagon. That's where our focus should be. And so when I saw the keywording of the documents coming through this guy and association with known operatives, then I was getting this taste in my mouth of, oh, here we go again. So maybe I overreacted just a little bit, and maybe not. So I haven't concluded that investigation yet, but we're going to see tons and tons. This is a very big newsletter, tons and tons of information. And what's going on out here in San Francisco, this is in the eye of the coming seismic volcanic storm right here. And I've got subscribers that are right here in the eye of the storm, that are rabbit hole diggers, that read everything. That I'm very impressed with their research capabilities, and the fact that there's all these warnings coming out. The big one that we've been reporting on, Cascadia, so many warnings coming out of here. Well, what's going to happen in this area? And they're still there. So I'm sitting 5 miles from the coast here in Florida, so maybe they're watching me. Maybe they're planning on the rapture, which I am too. And because my biblical background is a dominant force in this investigation. You know, some people have unsubscribed. They've canceled newsletter subscriptions, things like that, because they're looking for strictly scientific information. But what you're getting in this Project Black Star investigation follows the 9/11 investigation, follows decades of scriptural research, and I believe they're all connected. They're all connected. And you can't stop being, it's like Trump on the campaign trail. You just can't stop being who you are and change into somebody else. That's what you get with this investigation. So here's a story, and David is another rabbit hole digger. He is everywhere on the internet, sending in a lot of stories and beating a lot of my traditional contributors to the punch on sending in these articles. And you're going to see lots of related articles to these things in this newsletter, because it's just a pig. It's just like a book coming out every week now. And so there's a primary story, and here's information on what's going on with the ongoing Martian dust storms, because Mars, just like Earth, passed between the sun and the black star. And that, I mean, Mars doesn't have a robust magnetosphere like the Earth does. Our magnetosphere turns around and collapses, but there's no magnetosphere. There's no powerful magnetosphere there, so dust storms is what formed there, and the predictions were made, and then Mars blew up. When you look at it up in the sky, it looks much brighter than typically what you're going to see here. So there's a lot. Everybody should be focusing what's happening in Venezuela. You should be watching, because catastrophe is already there, and it's going to transition into mayhem and pandemonium later down the timeline. Learn from what happened here. This is like recent events in Chile. This is what happens when the power grids go down, and the Mad Max wants their food, and they're going house to house and things like that. And I see these things, these images that you're seeing, this is what's coming to the western United States. This is why Jade Helm 15 exercises took place already and why they're having these FEMA exercises right now. And this is what I mean. Lots of related stories underneath this one about Venezuela, and there's a no-win situation as the beast prepares at home and abroad. Lots of information here about troop movements, about what our military is doing, and how they, Camp FEMA, largest camp in America, has training exercise. I'm telling you, it's important to go through and look at this information. Pardon me. Secret midnight military drill near the Amtrak death camp. Indiana raises concerns. And lots and lots of information here. This, to me, we're looking at sleeper operations. The sleepers are the people not going to the underground ARC cities, but they are close to our government people, the Council on Foreign Relations, the CIA out of Denver, the CIA out of Langley, the lettered agencies that are working under the puppet government, the CIA in Washington, D.C., our National Guard, our military. So we have operatives, military operatives, National Guard operatives, some of them going to the underground ARC cities, members of Navy intelligence, for example, but not members of the Navy. And so the people that aren't going are the sleepers. They are standing right next to people, the elite, with the cards that are going to the underground ARC cities, but they have to be dealt with. If they wake up, the Civil War starts and it ruins everything for the elite. So these people that are the sleepers must be oriented. They must be trained for deployment into harm's way. They're going to be pushed right in front of us when the crap hits the fan so that the people neutralize the threat for them. They're going to be so engaged with us. This is part of the elite failsafe plan. I believe it happens 60 to 90 days before the actual quote-unquote event, the geological pole shift event, that allows the elite to slip away. We're so busy with our power being out, with the contagion I believe is coming, with quarantine, with the National Guard, we're in each other's way. We cannot get to our safe zone locations. And then these sleepers are taken out trying to deal with us. That's the way that I see it. There is no military force on the planet able to deal with Americans that are well armed whenever the crap hits the fan. There is no military force capable of doing that. Far too many lone wolves hiding in plain sight right in front of us. Right in front of the sleepers. In our general population. Lone wolf is everywhere. And they cannot even recognize. Artificial intelligence works diligently to try to flush them out, but they are hiding in plain sight right in front of us. And these are the people, the Jason Bournes that are in our environment, that are going to see the mistreatment of the American people when it happens, and they are going to self-deploy. So there are many, many factors that are going on here. This is the bigger picture, in my view, of what's going on. This is from Stargazer, and he runs bendedreality.com right here. This is his major stories for the week. It appears just below, at the bottom of the featured section, and just above the top stories of the week. What's going on here? And this is interesting to me that Dutch since found a supervolcano up near the North Pole. He named it Mount Dutch, and then he came under a lot of criticism. Because like he says, I've watched both of the videos. Here's the apology video right here, the link here. He's apologizing for doing what the establishment scientists, the educators, are supposed to be doing. So whenever people run out in front and show and point out things like that, I feel like that's what I'm doing with magnetic portal connections and things like that, and converging connections causing the massive solar flare activity. Very predictable pattern. But nobody pays very much attention to what I'm doing. Dutch Sense has a lot of subscribers, so he makes a bigger wave when he makes statements than I do, than I ever will probably. And so he's coming under a lot of criticism. And actually, I'm liking Dutch Sense, even though the quake depths for the Oklahoma quake swarm area are now reaching beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers. As I've been saying, that's going to happen. There is no explanation he's ever going to give for a fracking well that goes down 1 mile or 2 miles affecting anything at 8 kilometers. The crisscrossing of the substrata forbids that type of activity. It's impossible to create an event on the surface that goes so far deep down into Earth's crust. It's just really impossible. Eventually, hopefully, he realizes this is a global thing. The seismic pressures are shifting from Indonesia over to America. That's what's going on. He sees that pattern, part of the pattern, but as soon as he gets anywhere near America, then it's fracking. That's so I have a little bit of difficulty with that. Look at how Utah gets their 4.1 over there. That's a big quake for Utah. That's another indicator that the seismic pressures are indeed shifting over to the United States. So I want to give you a little look I'm already at 40 minutes here, and this baby has to upload. So I'm going to have to go, and you guys will catch me on the next Black Star Update Report. Last week's radio show is right here, and after the radio show ends at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, then I will re-upload this newsletter, and it'll have a 5:26 right here. That's today's radio show that I'm about to do over at Revolution Radio. So see you guys on the next Black Star Update Report. Got to run and upload this. But before I go, what am I doing? Then there were no new subscribers for last week to the newsletter. Not so this week. Let me get back up here. I'm not going to let me get back up here to my report. I'm not going to end the report without making mention of the newsletter subscribers. Project supporters for this week include Janine, Mike, and Stuart, who subscribed to Terrell's 2016 newsletter at terrell03.com to receive full subscriber benefits for the life of their subscriptions. Now they have my Gmail account address. They can write me. They send their questions, comments, ask for threat assessment, contingency planning, $25 a year. Then also Mary was all by herself in week 21. Now she's been joined by these other supporters, and she renewed her subscription from previous years. And Mike and Randy's all excited. She's got a new job, making more money for less work, and she's doing the happy dance thing. And Mike, I hope to get an update here real soon. He's getting ready to have a surgery for the funny condition that he had that appears to be venomous, and they're treating with antibiotics. I'm kind of scratching my head, and we'll see. Hopefully we'll have a report, an update. Appreciate your prayers for Mike, who's been having trouble lately. And you can get more information on Project Black Star. You can subscribe to the newsletter, support the research at terrell03.com. And I'll see you guys on the next Black Star Update Report. Catch you then. Hello YouTube and newsletter subscribers. This is Terrell from terrell03.com. Today is May 26, 2016. This is the Black Star Update Report connected to volume 21 of Terrell's 2016 newsletter. And lots of information here on what's going on seismically, and the fact that the binary star repulsion model is broken or requires modification, because what was predicted, what was expected, has not happened for 2016. I'll just begin by reading. Seismic and volcanic indicators all say Earth is moving through the first Earth change lull period for the 2016 orbit cycle relative to the black star, moving very slowly left in the orbit diagram at the feet of the Virgo constellation towards Libra, just below the ecliptic plane. So looking at these values for, this is week 15 for the last 2 years, you can see lots of big numbers up here. And when you look at this year's, 2 of these values, the 7s, this is the week that we have 7 magnitude earthquakes. And this is where we had 0. This is where we've seen more, with the exception of last year, we had 5 6 magnitude earthquakes. This year just 2. That still doesn't earn a red value. But here we've been averaging just over 50 of the 5 magnitude earthquakes, 18 definite red value in the chart right here. And the 2.5 to 4 magnitude earthquakes, they are way below where they usually are. Didn't quite earn a red value there. And when we come down and look at the chart, you can see more and more red is filling the board here, the seismic chart. And couldn't really give this a red value, just decreased by 1. It's the indicator quakes are saying that things are just about the same. Remember the 2.54 magnitude earthquakes, extremely important. We watch these fluctuate up and down, because as the Earth core is receiving added doses of electromagnetism, then the areas around the global calderas, the magma chambers, they tend to have more of these smaller magnitude earthquakes. And so that's remained stable for this week. Looking at this chart, this is what kind of struck me with the 5 magnitude earthquakes since week 10. Note the steady decline that we're seeing here. And when you go back and look historically, this just does not happen. Usually we have a high number, and then we will dive down and get a low number and then a bounce. There are no bounces here. This is just a gradual decrease all the way back from week 10, from 47. That's closer to where we should be seeing, but for week 15. The biggest value should be right here. That's what we've seen historically. So I may seem that this is a new addition. This is something to try to illustrate more. This is what was going on for week 13, 14, and 15 for 2014. And you can see all the big numbers here. 17 6 magnitude earthquakes, and that was just a 19-day period here. 13, 14, and 15. The indicator quakes for that 3-week period was almost 1,000. The 5 magnitude earthquakes, look at the big numbers for 2014. Then last year, I mean, we're still over 100 for these for the 5 magnitude earthquakes, we were almost to 60 for 1 week back here in week 13, back up to 56 the next week. So you're almost at 60 there. The 3-week total is only 63 for these 3 big weeks that we're supposed to have here. It's just not happening that way. We had from 6 magnitude and higher, we've only had those 2 Mexican quakes. That's it. Without them, these are all zeros across here. Well pronounced lull when we're supposed to be at our peak. That's what's going on here. So the Earth change lull period, I mean, how many times you guys heard me say that the Martian dust storms that were predicted, we predicted them way back, but they came too early. Then the magnetopause reversal that we expected, it happened. It was characterized as a collapse, magnetopause collapse, but we had these subatomic particle flows coming from beyond Earth towards the sun. That's what caused the Martian dust storms. That happens from magnetic portal connection convergence. So let's look at where we are in the solar system right now. Let's get this on the actual time right now. And what happens is, I previously thought that the black star was already in Libra. Now it appears that it's still at the feet of Virgo. So we are beyond that point. This is why we had all of this activity when Earth was passing between the sun and Virgo in the month of April. Now the Earth is beyond that, and Earth is moving towards this 90-degree angle position. So Earth, and now that black star orbital, the inbound orbital velocity has slowed even more, only 3 degrees left in the orbit diagram in an entire year, Earth in its 66,000 miles per hour is outpacing the black star even more dramatically on this cycle than on previous cycles. The lengthening of that magnetic portal connection as Earth is moving away from the black star is causing this magnetic portal connection to lengthen even more rapidly than on previous orbit cycles, and that's causing this well-pronounced lull right whenever we're supposed to have, when we're passing through Libra. This is when I thought we were, because the black star is in Libra, this is when we should have the high activity, and we have a dip in the chart that is more dramatic than we've seen in any year that I've been running this investigation since January of 2011. That's what's going on here. The Earth is in a well-defined